Hi, welcome to Miniatures Rundown. I'm Kevin, and today we're painting terrain. So in front of us here, we have several kits from Lasercraft Workshop, link in the description below. And we're going to paint them up and get them ready for the battlefield. So the thing that's really awesome about these kits is that they are double thickness, which what that means is that there's detail both on the inside walls and on the outside walls, which is uncommon in a lot of MDF kits, which is what this is made out of, MDF. First things first is they were assembled, we used wood glue to put them together, and notably though, the thing that I left off are all these trim pieces. And the reason why is I'm going to save us a lot of trouble by painting these separately and then gluing them on later. And they're very cleverly designed because what they're intended to do is help cover up all the connection points and also add a little bit of texture to the outside. So then after we attach the painted trim to the painted building, then we'll start adding the details and stuff. But the very first step though in getting this terrain ready is priming it. So we're going to start with a darker color. We're going to go with Hyrax Brown from the Color Forge series. And then we're going to overspray that with Infantry Brown from Vallejo. And what that's going to do is give it a kind of a dark, dusty look, make it look very industrial. And I think that that's going to give us a look that we are looking for. And then the trim, the outside portions, we're going to be painting in Wraithbone from Citadel, or Warhammer paints. And then the interior sections, that the railings and whatnot, are going to be painted in metallic, lead belcher. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get to priming. All right, so we've done our priming, and what that has given us so far is this kind of look here. Kind of looks a little bit worn and torn, battle worn, which is what we're looking for. These are ruins after all. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit more life to these ruins by adding some details. So I'm going to get my colors and then we'll get started. So the first thing we're going to do is add a little bit of wear to this building. And the way that we're going to do that is I kind of envision these as mechanical, to borrow a phrase from 40K Mechanicus style buildings. So they're probably going to be mostly a metal. And the paint on the outside, probably kind of chipping and wearing away. So we're going to do that by dry brushing some lead belcher onto this. So let's have a little spare piece of MDF here, and I'm going to just get some of that on my palette there. And using a large dry brush, we're just going to get this ready for some dry brushing. So along all these buildings here, really just hitting these inside portions, things that would be exposed to the elements, and just giving them a quick little rundown. Painting these windows, even though there's window frames that go over these, we're going to be still having like some wear, like there's been water runoff or they've been flooded, something of that nature. And we'll hit some of these rivets and stuff too. Just kind of add some life to this building. This old, dead, decrepit building we're going to add life to. And just kind of hit those edges there. The thing with MDF and this material when it comes to terrain is that the detail and the life from this terrain really comes from layering of paint, because there's not a whole lot of surface detail on it. So what we really want to do is add layers of color to help bring this terrain to life. I'm going to do the same thing to this side here. And just hitting these edges. This is the ruined portion of the building, so this will be obviously have suffered a bit more damage than whatever battle caused this initially to happen, or exterminatus, or whatever's in your head canon for what happened to this building. Just a very grim, dark Bob Ross talk right here. It's your world. You can make it whatever it is you want to be. And especially around this door here, I want to make sure to add some extra wear to this door because it's probably been open and shut many, many, many times over the millennia. Servitors haven't given it much attention, and especially up here along the tops, places where it would see a lot of wear. I'm not going to do a whole lot on this corner here because the trim pieces are going to meet here. So there's not a whole lot of reason to put any kind of detail work on those parts there. And you don't need to get super detailed with it. Once again, it's terrain, so at arm's length, if it looks good, it's going to do the job. So now we have the diamond plate up on here, and I'm going to do some more, and I'm going to do it a little bit heavier than I did on the sides, just because not only would it experience more wear, but it's even more metallic in nature than like the outside chip paint would be. So really giving it a good once over with the lead belcher. And the same thing for the interior spaces. Just going to give it really, hit it heavy with that lead belcher. Reload my brush, get back at it. And the interiors, you can get as crazy or as detailed as you want, but I find that they're often the places that are most unseen, so you don't have to be too crazy about it, but it's your terrain, your world, you make it however you want. My goal here is to get these ready for gameplay and still looking good at the same time. So same thing with this railing, this floor over here. It's definitely some kind of metal, so I'm going to make sure that that really carries through in that look. Being careful not to hit the walls so there's not any overages on the walls or anything like that, so that it doesn't look like, you know, you just splattered paint on it. So it just more looks like it's a different material than the rest of it. And then lastly, the diamond plate down here. Just really pushing it in, making it so that that color takes really well to that diamond plate. So it really conveys that it's metal. And we're going to do some more rust and stuff on that later. Make it look really used and worn. So now we have that. So now the interior, we've got metal, diamond plate, and this grating right here, and we got the outside really well worn. Now what I'm going to do is a burned out building, so we're going to add some ash and some burn marks. We're going to use a slightly different brush for this. I'm going to use this 1.5 inch brush here, and for this I'm using one of my favorite paints. I'm using Pro Acryl's Carbon Black in the squeeze tube. Just get a little bit out, don't need a whole lot. This is very, very strong paint. So just got it on my palette here. Just take my brush and just work a little bit out and just work it into the bristles, just like that. And then really we're going to go along all the parts that would have been scorched or damaged. So really the edges here, and we're just going to take the brush and just darken that edge up a little bit there. And what this will do when we put the railings and the trim on is this will really help the trim stand out and make the whole building really pop out with not a whole lot of effort or work at all. So then, especially this right here, this is some big battle damage. So we're going to make sure to hit that with some carbon black. And then I also always like to do some burns. Either on this one, I'm going to go down like it's kind of had maybe some runoff or something like that, molten something or another. And then you could also do it going upward too, like it's fire and the smoke has been going up. This one, I think it's going to look better going down because there's just not a whole lot of vertical space there. So I'm going to go down. It just adds a little bit more life, a little bit more character to your buildings when you do that. Just hit that edge right there. All right. So you see we've got quite a bit more detail on this building. It's really coming to life. And I'm going to do the rest of these buildings and then we're going to put on the trim. Okay. So now that we've got all of our terrain pieces painted and got some details in and got some weathering done on them, now we're going to attach all these trim pieces that we've painted separately. So really the tool that I use for this is just wood glue from the hardware store. I'm using Titebond 2, but any wood glue will work, even Elmer's or PVA. I like this because it's a little bit stronger. The really cool thing about this is that MDF is a really porous material, so using glue over already painted pieces, typically like on plastic or metal, is obviously not recommended because the glue sticks to the paint rather than to the material. In this case, because it's so porous, even though we have some paint on there, it's still going to seep in and stick. So we're going to start this piece here. So very simply, just uncap the wood glue, and we're just going to do a few dots of it, just to the side of it. You don't want to do too much because it will start to seep out and affect the look of everything else. So just a little bit really does go a long way. This isn't structurally important. We just want it to stick all around. Okay, and then always make sure you dry fit before you put stuff on. In this case, I've already dry fitted this quite a bit, so I know where this goes. So we're just going to put it right on there, and then just stick it like so. So here I have a little bit of seepage from the glue. It dries clear, so it's not going to be a huge problem. And we're going to go in with some details after this is all done and put together and help kind of clean that up a bit. So just like that. Same thing for the other side. A few dots. I'm going to use even a little bit less here. On these thinner pieces, it's sometimes easy to get a little bit too much. So you get a little bit of seepage. Then once again, just line it up. And all right. Once again, just line it up. And right there, this one got a little bit messy. That's okay. We're going to go in and just show you what to do. And if in the case of that happens, which it did, just get a paper towel and just wipe. That thinned out glue will dry very clear, so you don't have to worry about it. Then we're just going to let that dry. And I want to apply the trim to the rest of the buildings. All right. And here we are. We have all of the trim applied to all of our buildings, and we've given it a few minutes to dry and set in. So now we have all of these other pieces here that we did in lead belcher, all of the railings. And for some of them, specifically on this building here, they're doubled up, and because they fit into these extra wide spaces here. So we're just going to stick these together and then apply them. So just like before, a little bit of glue is going to go a long way. And it's super porous, so it's going to stick regardless if there's a little bit of paint on it or not. So we're just going to do that, and then a little bit of excess squeezes out, we just wipe it away. Then we're going to put it aside, give it a few minutes to dry, and then there's a second railing that goes on that same level there. That is the same concept. It has two parts because it fits in a double wide space. And drops. We're going to get, there's definitely going to be some squeezes out, and we'll just wipe it away. No big deal. We'd rather have too much and have it squeeze out a little bit than to have not enough and it falls apart. As it dries, it's going to lose volume and stuff too. So set that aside to dry. And in the meantime, we'll put on the other portions. So for this small building here, on the inside, there are these trim pieces, these support beams that go in on the sides here and in the middle. So we're just going to take these, and they mirror the same pattern of support beams that are on the outside. So it kind of gives you a guide as to where to put them. I only primed them on one side because you're not going to see the other side. Do that. I'm going to do the inside ones first so I don't have to reach through something that's glued and potentially knock it around. You can put these on before you paint and prime the building. I chose not to because this saves me a lot of time and it makes the details a lot extra clean, and I really like that. So I'm just going to put that in there. I get a little messy with the glue. That's okay. This is going to fit pretty firm right there in the corner. And see, I got some glue. As I just come with the territory. It dries clear, so it's not going to be a huge issue once it dries. And then we can hit it with some details in case some of that glue still appears to kind of make it look on purpose. And we do the same thing on the other side. Just get those middle pieces set in there and done. And so it's a tight fit, so don't be surprised if it gives you a little trouble. Just with a little finagling, you can push it in, have it fit right there. Then just wipe up the excess. And once again, the glue that shows on the outside will lose volume and also dry clear. So you don't have to worry too much about that. But that's the middle portion right there. And then these outside pieces, far easier. And once again, I prime these like this because I really like how clean this trim looks when it's painted separately and then applied to the finished building. It just means it saves you a lot of time from having to go in with a brush and paint the edging and all that stuff and potentially getting overage on parts of the building you've already painted. So just setting it in right there, and there we go. We're just gonna give it a chance to dry. I'm gonna move on to doing this building here with these double wide pieces that we had put together earlier. and just going to put those on. So you see there's this longer piece here. It just applies right here. Dry fit just like that. I'm just going to put some glue on the inside on the parts that connect. And then it will just slot right in there. Wipe away the excess. Okay, and then do the same thing with this side here. Do a quick dry fit, make sure it works. Perfect. And just a tiny bit of glue on the inside connecting points. Just like that. And then you get a little bit of excess that squeezes out, that's okay. Kind of tells you did enough. So we got that. It's looking really great. So we got those railings there, and then we have a few more on this building here. I'll do those in just a second. So on this building here, the railings that we have, they go along the top, kind of making like a little watchtower here. So we'll just apply those, and they have really tiny connection points. So we're just going to use a tiny bit of glue, and we're going to make sure that it fully coats and really sinks in. So just a tiny dab on these pieces right here. And these I primed on both sides because both sides are visible. So just like that. And then we have a middle portion here. And then the side portion there. And there's one more kind of broken off section on the other side. We'll get that. So just, I know that's kind of looks like a little bit more than what you need, but you'd rather have that and then just wipe away the excess. And then last but not least, have a little broken away piece here. Just like that. All right, so that's that building completed. Then we're going to move on to doing a few details, but we're going to give all of these pieces a little bit of time to dry, and then we'll get to painting just a few more finishing touches to really bring these buildings to life. Okay, so now that we've given these railings a chance to dry and set in, we're going to add some rust details. Now, I really like rust for this type of building, especially if we're using more neutral colors like this brown and this cream color. Adds a nice pop of color, but without being too distracting or overmuch. My favorite color for doing rust streaks is Mornfang Brown from Citadel, or it will be Warhammer Paint, depending on where you are and what time you watch this. This is one of my favorite things to do with buildings, so I'm just going to give this a shake, and I'm going to show you how I do it. So, using a base brush, just get some on there, clean off my brush, and then I'm going to get some water. And then I'm just going to draw it out till it gets very like almost milk consistency, kind of a, not quite a glaze, but almost to a glaze. And then on these buildings, like, so I'm going to hit random pieces. I'm not going to hit every rivet. I'm going to hit a lot of pieces, and just kind of to add some life, we'll do streak down on this corner here. Up here, do whatever you want. This is your world. And this piece right here, I would have some rust streaking down. Maybe up here in the corners would collect something so that it get a little rusty up there. Same with this corner up here. Reload my brush once it starts to get a little dry. And go here, especially on the door. I really like to put those details on the door. Helps draw attention to the door. On the rivets. Corners. This vent down here will get some rust. Especially these corners here. I really like to hit these corners with some rust. And up here in the archway. And just little touches like that. Yeah, you can do the same thing. You can do green for moss, or kind of a blue for maybe some verdigris. And regardless of how you do it though, it's just going to add that little extra pop of color will help add a ton of life to your building and really make it look like it belongs. We're going to do the same thing with this building here. Just kind of re-wet that Mornfang brown, get it to that almost glazed consistency. And then I always like to hit like these ports here. I always like to have some rust streaking down. I always think that looks really nice. I don't know about nice, but you know what I mean. In a wargaming sense, it looks nice. And then door, same thing here. Sit in these corners, draw a little bit of attention and help really separate out that trim from the rest of the building. And add a pop of color. And go in and remix that. And then same thing for these windows here. I'm actually going to go in on these windows and just hit those. And you see, with not a whole lot of colors, you can do a lot with terrain and really bring it to life and have some effective pieces on the battlefield, and really step up your battlefield, make your games look really great. And it doesn't take a whole lot of time or color to do. Just a few basic things and your battlefield will look amazing. Same thing over here. Specifically, this garage door, I'm gonna do some horizontal streaks because that kind of rolls up, and so it would collect rust horizontally. It's an old factory. It's seen a lot. It's come to the end of its lifetime. Just sitting there on some distant, faraway planet, rotting, only used for cover and blocking line of sight. But at least it's still useful. Still feels useful. All right, so that's that one done. I'm going to go ahead and do the details on this building here, and then we'll talk about what we did. And there we have it, everybody. I'll tell you, in just a couple hours, I was able to get these 3 buildings all said and done and ready for the tabletop. Using steps like these, you can apply these to any kit you want. It even works for Games Workshop buildings. It works for any number of MDF materials. It's just the same principles of spraying, overspraying, and then adding some details, adding some wear and tear, all apply to terrain in just about any setting, and specifically really war-torn settings. And you can get a good-looking battlefield in not a whole lot of time. Once again, these buildings are from Lasercraft Workshop. If you are interested in getting some for yourself, you can see the link down in the description below. And if you like content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.